Greetings, brothers and sisters. Hello and welcome back to Witches of the Moon. I'm Eva Maria, your Monday hostess. This video is a very late upload. I decided that I would shoot this and post this before shooting this week's video. We are currently on week 6, but this video in particular is meant to address the topic for week 5. The topic for week 5 was creating sacred space away from home. Unfortunately, I was not able to post that Monday because I have quite a bit going on in my life. Some of you who have checked out my YouTube channel may be like, what the hell? She never finished her 13 Days of Samhain series. I'm very sorry for falling off with that. The reason that happened is because I'm just being pulled in a lot of directions right now. I work 40 hours a week. I devote 30 hours a week to pursuing a bachelor's degree in business administration. I'm also here at Witches of the Moon. I am also beginning a project for positive change all around the world. I'm creating a network for organizations and people to come together to foster all sorts of works for the greater good, be they charitable, be they for like social or political change for the better, be they artistic or journalistic or whatever. If it's for positive change, then that's basically something that the group would welcome, having that as a part of it. That group that I've begun, that project, is called the TANK, and TANK stands for the Terrestrial Alliance of New Kind. I'll have a link to that in the description of this video in case any of you might be interested. With that said, let me begin to address the topic at hand, creating space away from home. Sacred space away from home, I'm sorry. I think what I want to do here, I have a video from my own channel. It was one of the earliest videos I created. And actually, it's two. It's part 1 and part 2, and they are about creating pocket altars. You know, altars that can kind of go with you. I do want to have those linked in the description below for this video. I think that would very much lend to the topic at hand. The two videos are about creating Altoids tin altars that you can you create them in the Altoids tin box, and you can take them with you wherever you go. But also, I did want to talk about the idea of sacred space in general. Sacred space is not, in my view, something that necessarily always needs to be created. Personally, I don't cast circles anymore, and there's a reason for that. I believe that sacredness is everywhere. Some people may not necessarily feel that way. They may not feel like the sort of vibe, I guess you could say, of sacredness existing in all places. For some people, it helps to create a focus, create a delineated sort of space, you know, a designated space, I mean to say, where they can feel that is a sacred location for their rites, for their works. It does also help to have a fixed focal point for raising energy and for keeping out the bad while allowing in the good. Personally, I would say for those that are very new to the practice of magic, I do suggest casting circles, and there's a reason why. I mean, I used to cast circles all the time. I only, after several years, kind of moved away from that practice, though in certain paths it's very important to cast circles because of the nature of the work that is being done. For example, in ceremonial magic, you know, the higher sorts of magics, things like Enochian magic, things like that, it is important to cast circles in those cases because the powers being worked with are some heavy powers. It's very potentially dangerous to be like, let me not cast a circle, you know, in certain cases like that. You know, there's a reason why there is a tradition of casting circles in certain paths. But the works that I do, I don't work as much with entities that are very volatile, very potentially dangerous. Those aren't the sorts of observances I tend to do. I tend to work with like raw universal sort of energy, um, just sort of fixing focus for manifesting changes in conformity, things like that. So I don't really necessarily feel a need to cast a circle. I sort of allow myself to be a part of the oneness that, you know, everything is sort of connected. That sort of sense that I get. You know, I do believe we all come from source, therefore everyone and everything has a connection, you know, and that's what sort of enables us to affect change on an energetic level remotely. You know, it's very much like the quantum idea of spooky entanglement. You know, something happens over here with this one particle over here, and then somehow it affects something over here. Um, you know, but I believe, whether you believe that there's a creator that created us, or whether you believe in, you know, the Big Bang, you know, there are some among us who are atheist pagans. It doesn't matter. We're all made of the same stuff. We all come from the same place. So we are all connected. But I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. What I mean to say is that I'm at a place in my practice where I don't feel that I need to cast circles. Not everyone always equates circles, though, with the idea of sacred space away from home either. Some people may consider the topic of sacred space away from home more about having a sort of almost altar space or a place for devotion. In that case as well, I don't see personally a need to have an altar per se. I believe that space and time are not fixed. I believe that sacredness is everywhere. The powers that I wish to reach, I don't necessarily have to have an image, you know, of them. I don't necessarily have to have like a set place, a set, you know, altar space. Now, I'm not saying that people shouldn't have an altar, a travel altar, or have a means of sort of delineating or designating a space that they feel is a sacred place. I don't feel that. I feel that, you know, different strokes for different folks. If it works for you, you should absolutely do it. But with that said, I think that's all I have to share on this topic at this point. I'm just letting you know my view. If it resonates with you, feel free to adopt that view, that stance. You know, you don't have to cast circles in order to work effective work. You don't have to, but there are certain cases where it is wise and advisable to do, because there are, in certain cases, powers, entities, energies that you may work with that can be very volatile, very dangerous. You know, again, in particularly ceremonial magics and things like that. But you know, there are paths that never so much delineated sacred space. You know, there are, for example, you don't see. I mean, how can I put this? For example, in Santeria, they don't sit there casting circles. Sure, they have places, you know, where they may hold their rights, but they don't like have like, they don't sit there like casting out a circle, you know what I mean? And they don't necessarily have altars, you know, away from home when they travel places. They see the Orishas and so on and so forth as existing as forces of nature and the world. You know what I mean? And this is just one example I'm giving. This is not to say that this is the only, you know, sort of path that doesn't necessarily like mark out a space specifically, or a border per se, for letting in the good and keeping out the bad. You know, my point being, not every path does that. It's not a prerequisite. Having travel altars is not a prerequisite either. They're nice to have if it's something that resonates with you. Go for it, then do it. You know, this is really a matter, I think, of personal preference. But with that said, I'm going to have the links for you below for the tank and for part 1 and part 2 of my Altoids Tin Altars videos. I really hope that this contributes to the discussion that we had for week 5. And now I'm going to end this video, and I will bless you. I will wish you all blessed be in Ashe. And until next time, until our next exchange, you all stay awesome and bye-bye for now. Now I'm going to go film the video for this current week.